The text came at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, when I was grading papers in my cramped apartment in Bellingham, Washington, wondering if I'd made a mistake taking this adjunct position at Western Washington University. Trust me? 2 words from Orion Blackwood, the enigmatic art professor who'd been circling the edges of my consciousness for months. We'd shared exactly 3 conversations, one about coffee shop etiquette, one about the weather, and one about whether Sylvia Plath was overrated, but something about him had lodged itself under my skin like a splinter. Depends on what you're asking, I typed back, my heart doing something irregular in my chest. Meet me at the sculpture garden tomorrow at midnight. Bring a blindfold. I stared at the message for a full minute, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Orion was beautiful in an otherworldly way, tall and lean with dark hair that always looked like he'd been running his fingers through it, and eyes the color of storm clouds. He moved through the world like he was keeping secrets, and apparently he was. I finally typed. Because you're curious. Because you've been watching me the same way I've been watching you. Because some things can only be experienced, not explained. He was right about the watching. Every faculty meeting, every chance encounter in the hallway, every glimpse of him through his studio window. I'd been collecting moments like a magpie, hoarding them against the loneliness that had become my constant companion since moving to this small college town where I knew no one. Ezra? Another message appeared. Say yes. My name in his texts looked different somehow, more significant. I thought about my quiet life, my careful routines, the way I'd been playing it safe for so long I'd forgotten what it felt like to want something badly enough to take a risk. Yes, I typed and hit send before I could change my mind. Don't bring your phone. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Just trust me. I spent the next 24 hours in a state of nervous anticipation, unable to concentrate on anything. What was he planning? What did he want from me? What was I walking into? But underneath the anxiety was something else, a thrumming excitement, a sense that my carefully ordered world was about to be turned upside down, and maybe that was exactly what I needed. The campus was eerily quiet at midnight, fog rolling in from Bellingham Bay to blur the edges of familiar buildings. I found Orion waiting by the Henry Moore sculpture, a dark silhouette against the darker night, and my pulse quickened at the sight of him. "You came," he said when I approached, and there was something like relief in his voice. I said I would. I held up the silk scarf I'd bought that afternoon, feeling foolish. I wasn't sure what kind of blindfold you had in mind. His smile was visible even in the dim light. Perfect. Are you ready? I don't even know what I'm getting ready for. That's the point. He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something woodsy and complex that made me want to lean into him. This is about experiencing something without the filter of expectation. About feeling instead of thinking. I'm not very good at not thinking. I know. His hand touched my cheek, just briefly, but the contact sent heat spiraling through me. That's why you need this. He took the scarf from my hands, his fingers brushing mine. Turn around. I hesitated for a moment, then turned, presenting my back to him. The silk was cool against my skin as he positioned it over my eyes, his hands gentle as he tied it behind my head. His breath was warm against my neck, and I shivered despite the mild night. Can you see anything? Nothing. Good. His hand found mine, fingers intertwining. Now we walk. The world became a collection of sensations, the texture of his palm against mine, the sound of our footsteps on the path, the way the fog seemed to muffle everything except the beating of my own heart. He led me slowly, carefully, his voice a quiet guide in the darkness. Steps here, he murmured, his other hand settling on my lower back to steady me. That's it. Without sight, I was hyper-aware of everything else, the way his thumb traced across my knuckles, the warmth of his body beside mine, the careful way he navigated me through what I assumed was the campus, though I was quickly losing track of where we were. Where are we going? I asked. Somewhere private. Somewhere we can be honest. The word honest sent a shiver through me. What did honesty look like in the dark, stripped of pretense and careful academic politeness? After what felt like an eternity, he stopped. I heard the sound of keys, a door opening. "My studio," he said, guiding me inside. "Don't worry, there's nothing you can trip over." I cleared a path. The space smelled like paint and turpentine and something else. Coffee, maybe, or the particular scent of creativity that seemed to follow him everywhere. He led me deeper into the room, then stopped. "Sit," he said, and I felt the edge of what seemed to be a couch against the backs of my legs. I sat carefully, my hands reaching out to orient myself in the unfamiliar space. The couch was leather, soft and worn, and I could feel the warmth where Orion settled beside me, close enough that our knees touched. "Why the blindfold?" I asked, my voice smaller than I intended. "Because you hide behind your eyes," he said. "You watch everything, analyze everything, but you don't let yourself feel anything. When you can't see, you have to rely on other senses. You have to be present in your body." His hand found mine in the darkness, and I realized he was right. Without sight, that touch felt electric, significant in a way it might not have otherwise. "What do you want from me?" I whispered. "I want to know who you are when you're not being careful. I want to see what happens when you let go of control." "I don't know how to do that." "Then let me teach you." His voice was closer now, and I could feel the warmth of his breath against my face. "Can I touch you?" The question sent heat pooling in my stomach. "Yes." His fingers traced the line of my jaw so gently I might have imagined it, then moved to my neck, finding the pulse point there. I couldn't suppress the soft sound that escaped me at the contact. "Your heart is racing," he observed. "I'm nervous." "Good nervous or bad nervous?" I considered the question, taking inventory of the sensations flooding through me: anticipation, desire, a thrilling sense of being on the edge of something unknown. "Good nervous," I admitted. "Tell me what you feel," he said, his thumb tracing along my collarbone through my shirt. "I feel awakened. Like I've been sleepwalking and suddenly I'm present in my body in a way I haven't been in years." "What else?" His hand moved to my chest, settling over my heart, and I leaned into the touch without thinking. I feel like I've been waiting for this without knowing what I was waiting for. This moment. The way you're looking at me even though I can't see you. "Can I undress you?" he asked, his fingers finding the hem of my sweater. "Yes," I breathed, lifting my arms to help him pull it over my head. In the darkness, every sensation was magnified. The cool air against my skin, the warmth of his palms as they mapped my chest, the way he traced each line and curve like he was memorizing me through touch. "You're beautiful," he murmured, pressing kisses along my collarbone. "So beautiful." "I can't see you," I said, my hands reaching for him in the darkness. "Then feel me," he said, guiding my hands to his chest. My fingers explored the landscape of his body, the sharp line of his collarbones, the lean muscle of his chest, the way his breath hitched when I found a particularly sensitive spot. Without sight, I had to rely on touch, on the sounds he made, on the way his body responded to mine. "I want to see you," I whispered. "Not yet," he said, catching my hands. "Trust me a little longer." He continued his careful exploration, his mouth following the path his hands had traced, until I was arching beneath him, lost in sensation. Every kiss felt like a question, every touch like a prayer, and I found myself responding in ways I never had before, open, unguarded, completely present in my body. "Orion," I gasped when his mouth found that sensitive spot just below my ear. "I'm here," he murmured against my skin. "I'm right here." Time became meaningless as we moved together in the darkness, learning each other's bodies, discovering what made the other gasp and sigh and whisper each other's names like invocations. When he finally joined with me, it was with such tenderness, such careful attention to my pleasure, that I felt tears leak from beneath the blindfold. "Are you okay?" he asked, stilling. Perfect, I whispered. I'm perfect. I woke to soft light filtering through what I assumed were windows, and the realization that the blindfold was gone. I was still on Orion's couch, covered by a soft blanket, and he was nowhere to be seen. For a moment, panic fluttered in my chest. Had he left? Had the night been some elaborate game, some artist's experiment in human connection that was now over? Good morning. His voice came from across the room, and I turned to see him standing at a small kitchenette, wearing only pajama pants and making coffee. The sight of him in the soft morning light, hair mussed, skin golden, a small smile playing at his lips, made my breath catch. Good morning, I said, suddenly self-conscious about being naked under the blanket. Coffee? He asked, pouring 2 cups. Please. He brought the coffee over, settling beside me on the couch. This close, I could see the details I'd missed in the darkness. The way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the small scar near his left eyebrow, the way he looked at me like I was something precious. How do you feel? He asked. I took inventory of my body, my emotions, the way the world seemed different in the morning light. Changed, I said finally. Like something fundamental shifted last night. Good changed or bad changed? Good, I said quickly. Definitely good. But also, vulnerable. Like you know parts of me now that I didn't even know existed. He reached out to touch my face, his thumb tracing my cheekbone. Is that scary? Terrifying, I admitted. But also, liberating. I've spent so much energy hiding from myself, from other people. Last night was the first time I felt like I could just be. You can always just be with me, he said seriously. No performance, no careful presentation. Just Ezra. The use of my name, the way he said it like it meant something important, made my chest tight with emotion. What happens now? I asked. Now we see if last night was a beginning or just a beautiful moment, he said. I'm hoping for a beginning. Me too, I said, and meant it with every fiber of my being. He smiled, setting down his coffee to pull me closer. Then let's begin. Over the next few weeks, we fell into a rhythm that felt both new and inevitable. Quiet dinners at his apartment overlooking the bay, where he'd cook elaborate meals while I sat at his kitchen counter grading papers and watching the way he moved through his space with such comfortable grace. Long walks through the sculpture garden where we'd first met, his hand warm in mine as we talked about everything and nothing. His latest painting, my research, the way the light fell across the water at different times of day. Evenings in his studio, where I'd read while he painted, both of us comfortable in the shared silence. Sometimes I'd catch him looking at me with that intense focus he usually reserved for his canvases, and I'd feel that familiar flutter in my chest, the one that reminded me how profoundly he'd changed my life. What are you working on? I asked one evening, looking up from my book to find him frowning at a canvas I couldn't see from my position on the couch. Something new, he said, stepping back from the easel. Want to see? I joined him in front of the painting and my breath caught. It was me again, but not the careful, observant version from his earlier work. This was me as I'd been that first night, vulnerable, open, caught in a moment of pure feeling. It's beautiful, I whispered. It's honest, he corrected. It's you without your armor. I studied the painting, seeing myself through his eyes, not the anxious, careful person I'd always believed myself to be, but someone capable of depth, of passion, of inspiring this kind of artistic devotion. I love you, I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. He turned to me, paint still on his fingers, his eyes bright with emotion. I love you too, he said. So much it scares me sometimes. Good scared or bad scared? I asked, echoing his question from that first night. Good scared, he said, pulling me close. The kind that means it matters. When he kissed me, I could taste the coffee he'd been drinking, smell the familiar scent of paint and turpentine that I'd come to associate with safety, with home. In his arms, surrounded by canvases that captured moments of beauty and truth, I felt more myself than I ever had. 6 months later, I was standing in the same sculpture garden where everything had begun, but this time I could see everything. The way the late afternoon light caught in Orion's hair, the nervous excitement in his eyes, the small crowd of faculty and friends who'd gathered for what they thought was just another campus art exhibition. "Are you ready?" he asked, his hand warm in mine. "I think so," I said, though my heart was racing with anticipation. He'd been mysterious about this particular showing, telling me only that it was something special, something that would change everything. When he pulled the cloth away from the largest canvas, I understood why. It was a series, 12 paintings that told the story of us. The first was me in the faculty lounge, the one he'd described that first night. Then progression through our relationship, that first night in his studio, painted from memory in shades of blue and gold that somehow captured the intimacy of darkness. Our first morning together, all soft light and tangled sheets, quiet moments I hadn't known he'd witnessed, me reading in his garden, cooking breakfast in his kitchen, sleeping curled against his chest. But it was the final painting that made my breath catch. It was us, but not as we were, as we could be. Standing together in what looked like a small ceremony, surrounded by flowers and friends, wearing matching rings that caught the painted sunlight. "Orion," I whispered, my voice breaking. He dropped to one knee right there in front of everyone, pulling out a small velvet box. "Ezra," he said, his voice carrying clearly across the garden. "That first night, you trusted me with your darkness. Will you trust me with your light? Will you marry me?" The ring was perfect, simple, elegant, exactly what I would have chosen if I'd been brave enough to imagine this moment. Through my tears, I could see our friends and colleagues smiling, some of them crying too, all of them witnessing this moment that felt both intensely private and beautifully public. "Yes," I said, my voice stronger now. "Yes, absolutely yes." When he slipped the ring onto my finger, it felt like completion, like I'd been carrying around an incomplete version of myself for years, and now, finally, I was whole. He stood and kissed me, deep and sure, while our friends cheered around us. Against my lips, he whispered, "I told you that night was a beginning." "Best beginning ever," I said and meant it. Later, after the congratulations and the champagne and the endless questions about when and where and how long we'd been planning this, we walked home together through the quiet campus, our hands linked, our future stretching out before us like a blank canvas waiting to be filled. "No more blindfolds?" I asked, teasing. "Oh, I wouldn't say that," he said, his eyes sparkling with mischief. "I still have a few things to teach you about trust." I laughed, pulling him closer. "I'm ready to learn." And I was. Ready for whatever came next, ready to keep discovering new parts of myself in the safety of his love, ready to spend the rest of my life with the man who'd seen me completely and chosen to stay. The man who'd taught me that sometimes the best way to find yourself is to trust someone else enough to let them guide you through the darkness.